We're going to continue to study the book of Romans, and I'd like to thank Corey and Scott both for 2 lessons that they covered. I've been gone for about 3 weeks. Uncle Sam said I had to go give him some time, and I gave him 3 weeks. And I thought to myself, back when Scott asked me to teach the book of Romans, I was like, you know what, this would be the perfect opportunity. I'm going to have 3 weeks away from work, away from all the stuff that has to be done around the house that you are going to get to but never get to. It's hanging over you. And I thought to myself, I'm going to have 3 weeks where all I got to do is, go do my soldier thing, and I'm going to come back to the hotel, and it's going to be my time. And it didn't work out that way. But in fact, I'm going to be doing the lesson tonight, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about what I did in those 3 weeks. And if you come this evening, you're going to find out why I didn't have a whole lot of time that I thought I was going to have. But anyhow, book of Romans. I'm not sure, and if someone does know, by all means, I'm not sure who came up or who established the order that the books of the Bible came in to being as far as in our Bible. But obviously, New Testament, the first 4 books are the gospel. The gospel, it covered the words, the works, the life of Christ. What he did, why he did. And that is the gospel. And I think Scott pointed that out last week, as far as differentiating the gospel and the Word of God. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, and maybe this is why it follows the Gospels, I don't know. But he actually, I think his main focus here is he brings out the significance of the sacrificial death and the resurrection of Christ. I got to thinking, and Romans is a very, very powerful book. I was kind of excited as far as when I was asked to teach this, because the book of Romans, it's not a hard book to teach. It is so full of very powerful information as it applies to our lives as a Christian. And I kind of look at this book as kind of like the grand finale of fireworks. At the very end, it's boom, 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 boom. Well, I think the book of Romans packs that punch because it covers such a great deal. And I did take the opportunity, and I did have the time, made the time. I listened to Corey's lesson. I listened to Scott's lesson. And one of them mentioned, the author of our book here, he did put 3 lessons into the first chapter. And why, I'm not sure, but anyhow, there's just a couple things that I just wanted to touch on as we go into the 3rd lesson. A couple things I just wanted to touch on a couple verses that Corey and Scott both covered, because it's going to apply to today's lesson as well. Verse 4, Paul's introducing himself to the Romans as he introduces himself in most of his letters. And in verse 4, when he's talking to Christ, he says, when he's speaking about Christ, he says, declare the Son of God with power by the resurrection from the dead, according to the Spirit of holiness, according to the Spirit of holiness, according to, So, the thing that jumps out at me, and you're going to hear this word throughout the book of Romans, he declares the Son of God with power. And you're going to hear that word multiple times. Who's that power? What's that power? It's God's power. And it's important, he just got done in verse 3 saying, where Christ came from as far as the lineage. And that's important because it fulfills prophecy that was spoken of in the Old Testament. But I think Paul made sure, and he used the words here, when he says that he was resurrected from the dead, according to the Spirit of holiness, he didn't say according to the spirit of the flesh, but of holiness. And I think there, you know, he verse prior, it was of the flesh. He came from the lineage of David. But I think Paul specifically or purposely was inspired to write this to show us the element that Christ has of divine with God. And I think that's important. In the next verse, he says, through whom we have received grace and apostleship to bring about the obedience of faith. We're going to hear about the obedience of faith here in the first chapter. We're going to see it at the end of this book. But one of the things that I got from this also, or the tap on my shoulder was, you know, we all say, or we all have heard that we are saved by grace. And you are saved by grace through obedient faith. The next part kind of jumped out at me. And again, maybe it was what I was doing for those 3 weeks, but we hear the word apostle. We heard about the 12 apostles. And I'll be honest, I've never looked up what the definition of an apostle is. Because it says that we've received grace and apostleship. Well, I'm all about receiving grace, because I need it. But I've also received apostleship. So my question, what is an apostle? Say again? He's a messenger. And it is, according to Webster, it's short and sweet. One sent on a mission to proclaim, and if you have a mission, you've got a purpose. And our purpose is to deliver the gospel. And I thought about that. And like I said, we're all about receiving grace from God. Well, we've also received apostleship from God, which means we have a mission. You can't just take one thing and say, okay, this applies to me. We're given both. So that's another thing that I got out of the beginning of this chapter was we are on a mission, and that's not something that we can fail to do. And a couple other ones that again jumped out at me. And this one, I hope it hits home with you, because it does with me. Verse 12, the reason why Paul wanted to go to Romans was that he may be encouraged together with, it says, I may be encouraged together with you while among you, each of us by the other's faith, both yours and mine. And I got to thinking, what's that done with me? And the only answer that I come up with was, I need to be encouraging others and hopefully receiving encouragement. So, again, when we come here, y'all are sitting there listening to a Bible class, and we're going to sing praises to God, and we're going to listen to Billy's sermon. But we need to make sure that we make the opportunity to encourage others. I don't see most y'all but once a week. Don't know what's going on in your lives, and you don't know what's going on in mine all the time. And you never know when that person that you pick out to say something encouraging to, the impact of that. So, make sure that we are encouraging others. And the last one before we get into today's lesson, and this is I call it the shout from a mountaintop. Because Paul's got a couple of them. He's got more than a couple. But the first one in the book of Romans is verse 16. And verse 16 reads, For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. What a powerful statement that is. And again, looking over and preparing this class, I read the book, I read the lesson, and sometimes I can, I can really agree with what the author's saying. And sometimes I'm like, where are you coming from with that? But the one thing that he does state in his introduction to the lessons on Romans is that this is probably one of the main themes, and it is. And it's something, again, and I know that I'm kind of rehashing some things that were already taught, but it's so important that because we have received apostleship just like we've received grace, and we've got a mission, we don't need to be ashamed of the gospel. We need to be proud of it, to be confident in it, and to share it with others. Okay, all that to start in verse 18. And like I said, when I was reading this lesson, I was kind of, he brought something up that I didn't put a lot of thought into, and that's what we're going to get into today. Verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all unrighteousness, against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. I think words are important. Words have meaning. And this verse doesn't read, for God being really angry, for God being really upset, for God being real mad. It says, for the wrath of God is revealed. Okay? I had to go back to Webster, because what's the difference? I mean, mad, angry, really upset. What does wrath mean? What do y'all think wrath means? Say again? Fury. Anyone else? Say again? Yes. And again, y'all be patient with me because I do look a lot of things up because, like I said, words are important. They've got meaning. Definition of wrath. Strong, vengeful anger or indignation. Retribution, or excuse me, I can't pronounce this word. Retributory. So help me there. Whatever. Punishment for an offense or a crime. And then the last one is divine chastisement. But you just said, there's action behind the fury, the feeling of, and therein lies the difference. God can be mad, God can be upset. We get mad, we get upset. And then we let it go. The wrath here, there's meaning behind that. And our author kind of touched on it. When you do get mad, you get upset, and you let something go, and hopefully the nature of whatever got you upset is not that big a deal, and you can let it go. But why does God have wrath for the ungodliness and the unrighteousness of this world? I'm going to need some help. You want me to focus on it?
This thing here is because we know.
Okay?
Here it's made clear. So we're doing it in this Bible knowing that God is in it.
The thing that I love about what, and this is what I was talking about as far as what the author here came up with that I never thought about. God's not neutral. Okay? Someone does you wrong, upsets you, gets mad, do you get them back? Is there something that someone has to pay because they made you mad, they made you upset? Sometimes maybe yes, a lot of times no. You just let it go. The bottom line is, we are living in a world and everything in it, it's God's will. And God cannot be a part of sin. And that's what this world has become. So I think the reason why the word wrath is in there is there's something to be paid. There's a cost. And the one thing that I look at is, and it's, I think what the Bible teaches is God's will, it will prevail. No matter what goes on in this world, from start to finish, when the end does come, God's will prevail. It's His universe. He created it, and He's going to have His way. So I think that it helped me understand better why the word wrath is chosen. Because there will be something to pay at the end. And I think that because there is something to pay at the end, this is where Paul's kind of introducing to the Romans, and he has throughout a number of other books, the need for redemption. Moving on. Y'all are quiet crowds. I'm going to read verses 18 through 23, and we're going to talk about it as well. Because and I'm not saying that I do now, which is why I like y'all's input. I think I had a misunderstanding of these next group of verses. Let me go ahead and read them. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Because that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes, His external power, and His divine nature has been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. For even though they knew God, they did not honor Him as God, or give thanks, but they became futile in their speculations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged their glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the form of corruptible man, and of birds and of four-footed animals and crawling creatures. So my question to you is, who is Paul talking to? Okay? I was looking at, in verse 14, he talks about the men that, the ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. In verse 19, the them. In verse 20, the they. And so the question is again, who is he talking to? Everybody. When I first read this, and not when I first read it, I've read it for years, and I kind of wondered, okay, because I even got it a walk around without excuse. So, are we to take this as everybody, the entire world, has no excuse, because it says so right here in Romans? That's a question.
Yes. Yes. He's made it evident. The thing that He has made evident, that He is God and He is creator. That is what His Spirit has been made evident. And anybody who turns their back on that fact and refuses to believe that there is a creator, then the wrath of God is stored up for them.
Okay? And here's my question. And years ago, I taught younger people. I taught some middle school age, I taught some high school age. And one of the things that they love to do, and if you've got kids, you can appreciate this, is the what if or what about. And I always heard as far as this particular goes, okay, what about all those tribes and Aborigines in Australia and all these tribes in Africa that don't live in the world today? I mean, they don't have cell phones, they don't have internet, they don't have this or that. They're living like back in the Stone Age. What about them? Are they without excuse? Because if we take this as, black and white, the entire world, everyone in it has no excuse. And I guess what my question to you is, and I'm not, and that may be, I know that back in Isaiah, he talked to people about God. And he talked about people with dim eyes and dull ears that didn't hear. Jeremiah did the same thing. I don't know, and I can't stand up here and tell you that every person, every human being in this entire world is without excuse. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. That part I don't know. I do know that without a shadow of a doubt, that he's talking to the folks that have heard about God, definitely, and they are without excuse.
The Gentile world, he has said the Jews and Greeks, the Gentiles. The Gentile world is when he's talking in Romans here, he's talking to the Jews, or about the Jews, and also about the Gentile world. And the Gentile world is the one that he's talking about that changed the glory of God and worshiped the creature instead of the creator, even though they knew better, because they all came with the same commands from the beginning of the world. During the patriarchal age, they fell away from it. God chose the Jews, the Israelites, out of all of the nations on earth to continue the word through Moses. But we find out later on that God's word, his spoken word, not the Ten Commandments, but his laws of nature, his laws of ethics, were conscience, were built into all men, so that they would see God. And later on he says that these who had not the law became the law because of their nature. They had their own law that they could live. But of course it's all going right now that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The conclusion of a couple of chapters is that being a Jew doesn't matter.
Right.
Or being a Gentile doesn't matter, because now everyone must hear and know Christ. But he's kind of set the mistake, I think, right now. He's talking about the non-Jewish world who chose, instead of worshiping God, to worship idols generations back. And even though God's presence is there.
Well, I guess I don't think that nature, and God created it, that nature's the teacher. Or that nature's the justification. I don't think. Because Paul, in other books of the New Testament, he said it, hey, Gentiles, there was a time where this was a mystery, and now the mystery is being revealed. The fact that the revelation was brought on to the Gentiles, well, something had to be revealed to them. So I don't think that nature, in and of itself, the mountains, the stars, the moon, the earth, that God's creation, that nature itself was, here's why you have no excuse. And like I said, I may be wrong. Yes, sir.
To me, in that paragraph, it does say that there is a baseline that every person is accountable to. And it's in the things that have been made. It says it is clearly perceived in the things that have been made. And so it doesn't mean that many things that are particular to the Jewish religion or anything like that were things that they were to be held accountable for. But David said, the heavens declare the glory of God. And so a human being who has not been taught anything, is accountable for a certain amount. And I think it's like John said, he's accountable not to worship idols. He's accountable to do things that, as it says in the second chapter, his conscience would teach him. And so when man ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he had a certain accountability to dress modestly because he put clothes on. And so, even though we're not accountable for particular aspects of our religion, we are accountable not to worship idols. And I think that that's what he's saying here. These people, the Gentiles, were guilty of not observing even fundamental, truths that could be perceived in the things that have been made. The things that have been made are things that you see in nature and in the heavens and so forth, I think.
Yes.
Two things in the two you read that are pointed, that are laid out about God. First of all, it describes the unrighteousness and wickedness as in contrast to him, because he's going to bring wrath upon it.
Right.
He's holy, he's righteous. There's a definite distinction between the two. Man knows that. Genesis 3 tells us that the man found that out.
Right.
So man knows that in his heart from the beginning. Man has a tendency to move that marker around as to what's okay for him today. But deep down, there is a right and wrong that comes from God. They know that, number one. Number two, they know there is a God that created everything and has the power to create everything, and they're accountable to it. That's the other thing he points out. Between those two things, he's trying to tell that there isn't an excuse. Now, they may not know who Jesus is. They may not know what the gospel is. But they know there's a God. And throughout the entire Bible, anyone who's turned looking for God, God has found them. Cornelius. He's come to them and made sure that they knew. The question is, were they looking for God, or were they off on their own doing whatever here? The question, is, and I don't have an answer, but I can tell you that if we look at history, look at the Canaanites. The Canaanites knew God in the sense of this right here. But they did exactly what they wanted, and they practiced their righteousness the way they are, right and wrong, the way, their justice the way they wanted to. And God determined at a point in time was up, and he said, exterminate them. Who? All of them. Because they had chosen to reject the God and the heavens and whatever. And so when we look at that, God, holiness means set apart. Righteousness. And that's what Romans is going to tell you. You got to be made righteous to be in his presence.
Right.
The question is how you get there.
Well, and I just, here's my question then. Because you just brought it up. The Canaanites knew there was a God. And they chose through their wisdom to worship him that way. And they were wrong. And I guess what I'm getting out of this is, I think that what Paul's specifically saying in these group of verses, he's talking to the people that definitely knew. They knew beyond a shadow of a doubt the right, the wrong, the righteous, the unrighteous. Because it says in verse 21, even though they knew God, and that applies to people in verses 18 through 20, they knew God, but they didn't honor him as God. So they knew it, and they chose not to honor him. And then in verse 22, and this is something that we need to make sure that we're not doing, is we're not smarter than God. It was through man's wisdom that they became fools. Why? Because they were relying on their own wisdom and not God's. They were doing things their way and not finding out what it took to please God. And Verse 23, it tells us how foolish they became by exchanging. They basically made something that was incorruptible, or excuse me, they made God, who was incorruptible, into an idol, which is corruptible and wrong. Next set of verses, verse 24 through 27. We're going to see where Paul references that he's revealed, that the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and all unrighteousness. He's getting into it. Verse 24, therefore God gave them over in the lust of their hearts to impurity, that their bodies might be dishonored among them. For they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. For this reason God gave them over to degrading passions, for the women exchanged the natural function for that which is unnatural. And in the same way also the men abandoned the natural function of the women and burned in their desire for one another. Men with men committing indecent acts and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. That right there, there's no clear way to say this, that God condemns homosexuality. There's no, well, maybe this, maybe that. It's very clear, it's very plain. God condemns homosexuality. Today, and not just today, it's been going on for a while. When I was growing up, you never heard of homosexuality. You didn't see it on TV. I didn't see it in the movies. I didn't see it. And today, you can't flip through the channels without seeing it. And somehow, some way, it's being pushed that somehow, some way, it's okay now. And
not only okay, the schools do that way. Even though less than 5% of America claims to be homosexual, if you look at television, you would think that it was a large percent. But it's less than 5. I think it's 2%, but it was less than 5 anyway.
When it became a pretty big deal when they started, and I want to say with Bill Clinton, where it was okay to be homosexual and serve in the armed forces. And there was a whole lot of, everyone had their opinions. And we did some digging on why is this being pushed? Why is this being pushed in the military? It is a different world to be in. And I'm not going to go into all that. But one of the main reasons why the military pushed was for recruiting. And to keep those that they had, because apparently, and I haven't looked at the percentages of what you just said, but the reality is in the military, they say that approximately 25 to 30% of the females that are in the military are gay. Less than 3% of the men in the military, and this is all branches, are gay. And they wanted to change it because you could get kicked out before, and they didn't want to lose the females that were in the military. But the bottom line is, and I'm getting a little off subject, the bottom line is, this is very clear that that homosexuality is ungodly and it's unrighteous. But he doesn't stop there. And, it is easy because, call it homophobic, call it whatever you want. There's a lot of people that have extremely strong feelings of that's wrong. And it is. And what I wanted to point out also is it doesn't stop there. It's not just homosexuals are ungodly and unrighteous to God. He goes on in verses 28 to the rest of the chapter. He brings out unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, oh, that's an easy one, strife, deceit, malice, gossipers, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents. Teach us lots more kids in there. Without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, and unmerciful. So, and that's the point I want to make. I've heard we don't normally talk about religion politics at work, but someone made a statement at my work, and his statement was that they should put all homosexuals on an island and blow them up. And I got to thinking. I said, hey, all those people that you want to put on an island and blow up, you know that they are a lost soul, just like you and me. We're lost souls that need the Word of God, that need His grace, and we all need to be saved. It's easy to hate homosexuality. And I think pretty evident God hates it. I mean, it's there's a number of things that God, that's an abomination to God, and that's one of them. It made the list. So it's easy. But what I just read to you is unrighteousness and ungodliness as well. And we need to keep ourselves in check and hate all sin. And hate all of it. Because it is the unrighteousness and ungodliness that is going to bring about God's wrath. And I had to look up some of these, I kind of knew what they were. But again, and I think you just said it, they kind of apply to us. Yes, sir.
Mark, I often say this when I hear conversations such as you're talking about. It's a lot easier for us to be super critical of someone who has a problem that we do.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes. And that's why I said earlier, as far as when you come to church, to pick someone out to encourage because you don't know. You don't know their lives. You don't know what's going on. And I'll give you 1 second. And the one thing that I can say, talk to a lot of folks, and for some reason, lots of folks come and talk to me about stuff. Whether it's my mechanics, whether it's soldiers that have been in my units. I don't know if I got Dr. Phil stamped on my forehead or what, but I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm amazed. I've known these people for years to find out what's really going on in their lives, and we don't know. And it is easier to hate that which you don't have or don't have to deal with. But it amazed me. And I actually, well, that's what I was going to finish up with. Our society is, and I'm not wanting to come across doom and gloom, but our society is going down, and it's been going down. And I think that one of the things, and I mentioned it earlier, we see on TV, there's shows now that people are openly homosexual. Disney is, Disney's supposed to be for kids, and Disney's on that same bandwagon. I think one of the things that we need to be very, very aware of, critically aware of, is what the world around us is doing. And I think one of the reasons why things have gotten to be okay out in the open and everything is the desensitization that the media, the movies, the TV, what it all has. And it's not just the media, movies, and TV. There's other things that desensitize us. Alcohol, drugs, pornography, the TV, politicians. And we need to be careful of that because what things that used to not be okay, they're still not okay. But it's being pushed and pushed very strongly to be okay. And Paul talks about those folks in that last verse, in the last couple verses. And although they knew the ordinance of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do the same, but also give hearty approval to those who practice it. And again, you can disagree with me, agree with me, but that's why we're all here, kind of sharing our thoughts. We are approving when we watch TV that has open homosexuality. We're approving of things when we watch things or participate in things that are ungodly or unrighteous. We're doing what that verse just said we ought not be doing. So this lesson to me, it was a great eye-opener as far as it's easy to hate homosexuality. It needs to be easy to hate everything else that I just read. And if that's in our life, we need to do something about it. And some of these, I wasn't quite sure to strike. What is strike? It's anger or bitter disagreement. Well, I had a lot of disagreement over these past few weeks with some folks. Malice, the intent or desire to do evil or ill will. Well, hopefully I don't have that. But there's so many things in here that are easy for us to fall into. So, point I wanted to make, all of this refers to the ungodliness and unrighteousness. And we need to make sure that we're not about that. Any other questions, comments, anything? Oh, I forgot to get back to you.
I was just thinking, sin is sin in God's eyes, and so people try to get us back with, well, that sin is sin. So with the desensitization that we've got in society, we also have it looking at us that, well, if you disagree with what I do, you hate me. And so we also want to preserve that we don't hate people because we're called to love the sinner and hate the sin. But they're telling us that we're not allowed to do that.
And that's what my lesson's going to be on tonight. Or straight into it. You're right.
So, but I could hope you did that.
We can't let ourselves be pigeonholed into that. One of the things that I love and that I'm encouraged by, and you're not here today, but so often you hear, Joni, when stuff's brought up as far as addressing sin or whatever, to do it with love. And I've heard it multiple times, and that's something that hits home with me. And I'm glad that she brings that up often. I'm thankful that one of the things that Scott does, and again, it's a shot in the arm for me, is he's a good reminder that it's not just faith. It's faith through obedience that we receive God's grace, God's blessings. And it's not just faith by itself. Because faith without works is dead. It takes more than just faith. I think you said it last week. And I'm not sure where it's at, but the devil or the demons believe. So it takes more than just, I believe in God. Because the demons did. It takes obedience through faith. Yes. Okay? I appreciate everyone's participation, and we're going to touch base. I ran out of time. We're going to touch base on some things in chapter 2. The next lesson he gets into is in chapter 3. But we're going to touch base on a couple of important things in chapter 2 next week, and so be sure to read it. And I appreciate y'all's